One-arm triangles, that's what I would like to call these kind of triangles, because they go around one arm here, and the third angle is created by the opposite hand somewhere in mid-air. I just showed you 4 slightly different forms of these one-arm triangles by 4 different ways how to get in. They all look very similar, but they are slightly different, and because of these slight differences they offer different opportunities for transitions into other moves. That's why I always recommend to try all the variations, and if you try to figure stuff out maybe from other people's videos, heed those little details, they might be important. What they all have in common are 3 main actions, how to create them. The first thing is to create an open angle that goes around one arm, it goes around the tricep armpit area of one arm. Second step is to take both ends of the whip, the handle and the tail end, into one hand. And the third thing is you pull that triangle into shape, and then you can shift it and float around with it. There are 2 main points where these triangles can be different. There are a lot of little details that can be different too, but there are 2 main points that I want to highlight. The first thing is if this line here from the free floating angle to the opposite arm first goes under the armpit, like here, and then comes up across the arm and in front of the arm to the hand. That's this one. Or if this line from the free floating angle goes first over the arm and then under the armpit. It's like here, it goes first over the arm and then under the armpit to the hand. The other main point is which hand holds both ends of the whip. So in this case it is what I would like to call the 2-point arm for this tutorial, just to refer to it. It's the arm that has 2 triangle points here on the hand and on the arm. And this hand holds both ends of the whip. But it can also be the hand that creates this free floating point of the triangle, like here. So we sum it up, it's 4 different forms of the triangle, and now we go through them step by step. At first I want to show you maybe easiest, most intuitive and smoothest ways how to get into each of these triangle forms. There's always one way for one triangle that's the easiest. However, by any of these 4 different ways into the triangles, you can go into every form of these triangles. This might be a bit confusing, but I want to try to explain this at the end of this tutorial. But now just start with the basics. Take your handle in the hand on the surface side if you want to follow along and mirror me. The first one, you create this open angle just by flipping your whip in a forwards motion over the arm. If you watched the tutorial on the arm-to-arm triangles already, you know this, just this forward motion, flipping here the whip over the arm. The next step is that the handle hand grabs the fibers, and I like to do this just with 2 fingers, because then you have fibers sliding between your fingers here and not between your fingers and the handle. Depending on what whip you use, on what grip you have, the fibers don't really slide well over the handle, so it's better to have it just between the fingers. Once again, you flip over and grab the fibers, and you grab the tail end here underneath the other hand. You could also grab here so that the other hand just still holds the fibers, but then this hand would have to re-grab here, and you can skip this re-grabbing if you immediately just take the fibers underneath the opposite hand. So you have it like this, and then the opposite hand just pulls the triangle into shape. This grip has to be really loose, that the fibers can slide through the fingers quite easily, and that's all. There you have your one-armed triangle. In this case, the form where the hand of the 2-point arm holds both ends of the whip, and the line from the free-floating angle to the opposite arm goes right under the armpit. So once again here, flipping over, grabbing the fibers, pulling into shape. Same thing for the other hand. Flipping the whip over in a forwards motion, so it goes from underneath over the arm to here. The handle hand grabs the fibers just with 2 fingers underneath the opposite hand, and this hand pulls the triangle into shape. And then you can just try where you can fold it, what you can do with it. Once again, flipping over in the forwards motion, grabbing the fibers and pulling into shape. The second option, if you can flip forwards, you can also flip backwards. So this one you start backwards flipping motion, the whip over your arm, and once again the handle hand grabs the fibers underneath the opposite hand, just with 2 fingers, to have it slide through the fingers and pull into shape. So the second one, where the 2-point arm holds both ends of the whip, but this time the line from the free-floating angle to the arm goes over the arm here. The first one was under the armpit, and this one goes over the arm. Once again, flipping backwards, grabbing the fibers under the opposite hand and pulling into shape. Other hand, same thing. You're flipping over the arm in a backwards motion, grab the fiber end and pull into shape. And again you see here from the free-floating angle the line goes over the arm and from there under the armpit. Once again, flipping over, grabbing the fibers with 2 fingers and pulling into shape. The 2 other forms start with tracing around the opposite elbow. So again, hold your whip like this, and the handle hand goes all the way around the opposite elbow, and then when it comes back, the handle hand grabs the tail end of the fibers, and it's the 2-point arm now that's pulling the triangle into shape like this. And this leads to a triangle where the hand that creates this free-floating angle holds both ends of the whip, and where the line from this free-floating angle goes under the armpit first. Once again, tracing around the opposite elbow, grabbing the fibers with 2 fingers and pulling into shape. Same thing for the other hand. Trace over the opposite elbow, grab the fibers with 2 fingers underneath the other hand, and this 2-point arm is pulling into shape. Once again here, tracing over the opposite elbow, grabbing the fibers and pulling into shape. For the last one, you start tracing under the opposite elbow. Once again, start here in this position, and the handle hand goes under the opposite elbow, comes back, and again the handle hand grabs the fibers here underneath the opposite arm and you pull into shape. For this one, it's the easiest way if the 2-point arm pulls downwards into shape. So again, you have a triangle where the hand that creates this free-floating angle holds both ends of the whip, and this time the line from this free-floating angle goes over the opposite arm. Once again, going under, grabbing the fibers, pulling into shape. There you are. Same thing with the other hand. Tracing under the opposite arm, the handle hand grabs the fibers, and the 2-point arm pulls into shape. Once again, tracing under the opposite arm, handle hand grabs the fibers underneath the opposite hand, and this hand pulls into shape. There you have all the 4 versions of this triangle and 4 different ways how to get in there. I said in the beginning that from each way into the triangles you can go into any of these forms. The reason is that at the 2 main points of action you have a choice. The first thing you do is to hit this open angle in 4 different ways we just had. The next step is taking both ends of the whip in one hand. So far it was always the handle hand that grabbed the fibers. But it can also be the fiber hand that takes the handle. And then you have the handle hand becomes this 2-point arm, and that can pull into shape. So just as an example from this first version, just flipping the whip over in the forwards motion, we came into this one. It was the 2-point arm holding both ends of the whip and the other hand holding this free floating angle. The fibers going from the free floating angle under the armpit. That was the first one. When you do the same flipping over in the forwards motion, but hand off the handle to the opposite hand and then pull into shape here. You have a triangle where the free floating hand holds both ends of the whip, and again it goes from the free floating angle under the armpit. The other point where you have a choice is which part of the fiber strand you actually pull into shape. If you created this angle and took both the whip ends into one hand, it creates a loop around the arm. And so you have 2 of these fiber strands, and you can use each of these to pull into a triangle. So far we simply took the one which is already held by the opposite hand, so just going in there, this hand stayed on the fibers, just the opposite hand took the fiber strand and you just pull. But if you go into the same thing and you switch, this hand lets go and takes the other strand, can also pull into shape. And this affects if the line from the free floating angle goes under the armpit or over the armpit. So for the first one, just flipping in forwards motion, you pulled into shape and the horizontal line went under the armpit. If you do the same forwards motion and you take the other strand, you have the triangle where the line from the free floating angle goes over the arm. This might be already confusing if you just start out to experiment with triangles, and I'll just stop here. I'm not going to show you all the 16 variations that come out of this. I just wanted to give you the idea and show you the points of choice where you can change your game and give you the building blocks for your own further experimentation, and I hope that helps.